to speed, up to speed, up to speed.
Live from the apocalypse. Look at the big brain on Brad. This is State of the Game. My name is Dano. Uh, and, you know, I have experiences that are truly unique. I was watching a documentary with my family. I paused the documentary, pointed at the person talking, and said to my family, that guy blocked me on Twitter. That's a pretty cool experience. My life is pretty fucking cool. Um, I'm here and joined, as I am every week, by a person so unique that he pays a lot of money to watch people slowly eat empanadas. I've never questioned it. Whatever gets you through the day, right? But Kay Diggy is here. Thank you for being here.
That turned out better than I thought it was going to turn out. Yeah.
Slower, slower. Um, so we are joined here by man, and I've known about our guest Miles Cooke since 2022 because, like smart people, you should always follow the Karma Kids. Always follow the Karma Kids, Lieutenant Head Trip. It's very good talent scouts, very good people that know good, smart people and give them open avenues. So, Teddy Faley, obviously, different people. So, we're like, I listened to it, was like, this is interesting. This is someone fully formed, right? Someone who knows what they want to do. But then, new album came out, Ceci n'est pas un portrait. Um, and I'm telling you, the RMPP Discord was humming with praise for this album. There was a listening party I was not even able to attend, so I don't even know that part. I just know when it came out, there was another wave of this. This album's beautiful. So, uh, and I honestly didn't understand it. When I first heard it, um, I knew it was good, but there was levels to it. So um, I was able to get to some of the levels, and I'm really excited about it. Really excited to talk to you about it. But yeah, really, the reason this all changed for me. I promise I'm getting to the MK. I promise I'm getting to the the when I listened to Real Notes and it clicked for me because I didn't even realize this was a Magritte tip, the album title This Is Not a Pipe. Um,
Did I
and
say the name? I don't think you said.
Huh? You go
Did,
ahead. You go ahead.
Miles Cook. You didn't say his name.
I did early on.
Oh.
But yeah, Miles Cook is here with us. Thank you very much. But the Real Notes episode, Dylan Reed was great.
Mhm.
You covered a lot of ground, and the Magritte thing clicked in with me. I was like, oh, this is good. Yeah. My art class was really low key. So there was just a giant bin that she just put out, and there were a bunch of little art kind of post-it kind of things, the kind of things you just like send to people as post-its, and the Galcondo was in there, and it changed my whole understanding of art. Like I first learned juxtaposition through Magritte. So you naming this and talking about the importance of it meant a lot to me. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Good deal. A long introduction, Kay, but
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah. Thank you for this. I have a weird first question, if I could. I was wondering if you're into westerns or anything like that.
I'm a pretty big movie buff. I've kind of been slacking on like staying on top of my watch list. But I definitely had a phase where I was just like anything I could watch from any period of time. There was a laundry list. Yeah, I fuck with Westerns.
I was I, one of the things that and I'm just going to refer to it as this is not a portrait because I don't think nailing the French over and over again is going to work for me. Um, my favorite song on the album is Untitled with Rama, right? And you said most of these rappers be some hit dogs hollering. And I was like, no one says shit like that. Like that is just very different in terms of the language you use, the phraseology, the words. And then there was another one on number seven, Dismiss the Fear of Being You. He said, singing high noon through the shipwreck. And I was just like, the frame of reference. This is a New Yorker talking. This is like the hit dogs hollering. These expressions are so different and from different places. I was like, is there an affinity for old Western languages, tropes, outdated phrases? What is talk to me about that?
Yeah, a big part of my writing process is watching movies. I'm not gonna lie. I like finding old-timey phrases or just like some like dialogue that you don't hear in rap songs is like all throughout movies. And like if something clicks, I'm just like I want to figure out a way to flip that and put it into somewhere in a verse. So I'm like I try to make a point to uh keep my notes app running during watching films, and if something jumps out at me, maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't, but like I'll just have a running list of things I'm drawing from in conjunction with just like letting ideas pour out.
That's awesome. A lot of the, I think that might be in one of the like master list of misconceptions about rappers. Um, People think of rappers as kind of badasses or rock stars, and I think first and foremost, they're word nuts, right? They're people who are nuts for words. They're just, most of them that I've encountered, there's no excitement like finding a new word and figuring out how to use it. So that's awesome. Um, Kay, did you bump into any phrases or words that you were like, what is this?
No, I mean, it was. I will say it's like one of those projects like kind of washes over you. You just take it all in. I mean, I feel like it's one of those ones that grows with you. Like the more times you listen to it, like it kind of seeps into your subconscious a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to sit with this one. I just got introduced to it this week, so I'm definitely going to sit with it for a little bit longer and allow it to run its course.
Yeah, there's probably levels of processing this album, right, Miles, where it's like sonics, mood, and then like, meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I it's hard to talk about uh my own work objectively considering I was had a hand in making it.
Sure.
Um but I definitely like I'm not gonna say it was a part of like creating the work, but in the back of my mind I definitely wanted there to be some level of um like people go if you feel obliged or inclined to go back and dig and look for things, they're in there. I put them there. So I didn't want it to be something like you just listen to it once, you're like, I understand everything, and I'm on to the next one. So um yeah, the writing is influenced by, like a lot of my influences are records that you have to go back and listen to multiple times. So I was listening to Labor Days a lot during the making of this. Like the first two Hell records, Company Flow, None Shall Pass, like that. Those records were big, heavy in rotation during the process of making this record. And it's like those records I remember like you just have to spend time with them. I remember hearing Fantastic Damage and like sonically I was like this is amazing and not understanding but I didn't understand the record at all. And it's like took multiple listens for me to like really break down how brilliant some of the writing is and on that record. So, I was like what's like my version of that is kind of where I was coming from.
Yeah, I think it was like when those lyrics websites really took root is when I was like, this motherfucker's brilliant, you know? And because I could really dig in and break it down like that. Um, but yeah, Kate, I think and this does come from experience, but I've also seen people and how they work. When you are putting kind of Easter eggs in there, double meanings, uh, stories, things like that, you have to make sure you're doing it for you because it's very likely that no one will ever ask you a question about it. And you have to be okay to be like, I did that for me. I like it. I like that it's there, you know?
Sure, for sure. I mean, like the 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 mission is always to create something I'm proud of and happy with first and foremost, right? So,
Yep.
if people don't get, I mean, I don't expect people to catch all the references. They're like they're buried in there, and like it wouldn't be fun for me to just like tell people what they are, right? So, and if no one ever gets it, that's fine too. It was like I still made a record I'm happy with, right? So I think that's more important than like someone like, oh, it's really cool you said that, and that's a reference to this. I'm like, no, no, you might not ever find out about that.
And 10 years from now, somebody might be like, holy shit, he's talking about the Battleship movie with Rihanna. Like, 10 years from now, they might pull something. I mean, that happens with great stuff that you love. Sometimes it's buried so deep you don't get it until later. Um, but that's a great journey. There's nothing wrong with not knowing not knowing everything that's going on. You know, my mom, when I got her into jazz, she was very overwhelmed at first. And she's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to listen to this. I'm not smart enough for this. I was like, Mom, just let it make you feel things, right? If you let it make you feel things, you'll learn it more and more, and you'll learn what to listen to over time. And I'll be talking to you a couple months from now. You'll be like, this bassist is whack. You'll understand what you expect from these things. Uh, but don't be intimidated. Let the feelings be okay. And I think you can still do that with This Is Not a Portrait. You can still just run it because it's one of the best produced albums of 2025. Yep. So, yeah, layers to it, man. Oh, so to start earlier, because I used to feel this, right? Which came out in 2022. Uh, that had 10 songs as well, and you produced the whole thing,
Correct.
which in this case, you didn't produce the whole thing, but you didn't not produce, right? You certainly had some, and some of your beats on here are some of my favorites. Talk to me about how not producing the whole thing frees you up versus what is the difference in that process?
Um, so I part of like what like originally some of the early like creative decisions were kind of born out of performing my first record live and like I made that record in so much isolation and not thinking about live performances because I was just kind of cut off from the world. Like I didn't have social media at the time when I was making that record. I was off of all social media for like 3 years. Um, so I was really insulated. And obviously COVID happened around that time as well. So like the lockdowns, all of that stuff. And so then going out and like performing that music, um, there was a lot for me personally that was like felt like it was missing from performing those songs. Like, um, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it wasn't really fun to perform that material. And I was when I started working on this record, I knew I was thinking about the live show. I had the live show in mind for sure. And I was like, am I gonna enjoy performing these songs? I'm gonna be like excited to play them. And a part of that was just like I need like heavy hitting drums and I want to
Yeah.
grind it down. And I was like, that's when I was like, I think I need to pull in other people. So that was a part of that decision making process. I
That's
just hope my beats don't knock like that. I don't know. I'm not shy about saying that. If they did, I would have produced this whole record myself. So, but I needed the help of much better producers than me to get the sound I was looking for.
And how did you go about finding those producers?
Well, so I know I met Jeff Markey through Sketch 185. I had I met Sketch like probably a couple of months before my record came out, and then really kind of like you know started forming a friendship relationship. He played my album release show in Connecticut, so had a chance to like chop it up, and then somewhere down the line, I don't know, I think his record came out a few months after that. So yeah, just through like conversations, ended up linking up with Jeff, then played me a bunch of beats. We took it from there. Um, and then with Foul Monk and Roper Williams, I just reached out over the internet. Like often people post stuff on Instagram. They're just like, these beats are for sale. And I remember Foul Monk posted one. And I was like, I was fortunate enough to catch it within a few minutes. I was like, take this down. I need this beat. And that turns out to be the first beat on the record. I heard it and I was like, I need that one immediately. Like
Mm.
that's exactly what I'm looking for. And then the other ones we kind of like worked from there. So yeah.
yeah, I noted that. I made notes here. Um, and I said there was something, was it which one? I'm gonna find the there you go. It was in Dismiss the Fear of Being You. The Foul Monk beat grounds us in a more traditionally gritty New York sound. A lot of this album was experimental, and the Foul Monk beats always feel familiar in a good way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was like, not to like pull the curtain back too much, but I had originally a plan to like have everything on the record sound like that gritty and grimy.
Right.
Um, and somewhere along in the process, I was like, there needs to be some period of levity because it's just like otherwise, I don't know if I can keep the attention of the listener if every song is like really abrasive and uh so broke it up a little bit, but there was a point in early in the process of writing and recording where I was just like I want the grimiest, gritty sound I can get for every song on this record. Um and yeah, luckily was able to get work with Foul Monk on a couple of those.
Yeah, but I think having Monk, Roper, and Markey is just a it's a really good that's a really good team. Um, Monk obviously gives you that grit, gives you what you were looking for. Marquis makes music that's still dark, but it sounds like the kind of shit you better open up over. Like, like you need to open up on this beat. Like you need to tell us something about yourself. And that's why that sketch album is one of his best, right? Like, um, and there's something about Roper, man. What was it gonna? I was, this is my notes. Was the Roper thing? He was. because I just he's so unique. I said on Book of Job Part Two, which is one of my favorites. Roper is a piano genius. That's that's all I said. Piano genius. And anytime there's a piano element in a Roper beat, it's just I adore it.
Mhm.
So yeah, really unique sound. So when you mix all that with what you did production wise, it just the chemistry's really good sonically. It really links in and feels united. Um, yeah.
Yeah, the sequencing was definitely a big part of that as well. But I also think I just like I got I'll call it luck. I got lucky and picked the beats that work together well.
So what are you looking for when you're choosing things to rap over? What are you looking for?
Oh man, it's really I wish I could remember the sketch quote. It's like, oh, you don't negotiate with a beat. It's something like he said something
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
and that's stuck with me since I heard him say it. It's like basically if I can hear myself rapping on it, it's something I'll gravitate towards. And otherwise, it's like I don't want. I'm not gonna fight it. I'm not gonna fight the beat and like try to impose my vision on it if it doesn't work. I do think there is something to be said about the ability to do that, but that's a totally different skill or conversation from creating a record, right? So that's not saying I can't rap on any beat or I can't rap on the beats that like are outside of the purview of what was on this record. But there is like a very deliberate like when you hear it, if it resonates with you, like if it's speaking to me, it's like it's probably as simple as that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. Love you, buddy. Have a good night. So anyway, think about it because like there isn't it's a nice middle ground, I will say. It's a reasonable middle ground because it feels like on one end you produce it yourself or you get one producer to produce it all. And on the other end is these projects with just every producer on it, you know? But what you did was you said, nope, I like Jeff Marquis a lot. I'm going to get a few, right? Like I like Roper. I'm going to get a few. I'm in a room with Roper. I'm going to get a few. And you put them together, and now you've got, and Foul Monk has two, right? Am I right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's six out of like the 10 that are just solidly make sense together. You can weave together with your beats, and so it's not it's consistent, but it's not samey, you know? Yeah. So that's yeah. I dig it. I dig it. Um and yeah, it just so but the question in regards to uh original question in regards to producing it all versus not producing it all was actually more about as an MC, how does that free you up?
Oh, yeah, my bad. I didn't answer your
Oh,
question.
good. Oh, good.
I felt like I was able to give more to the writing, definitely, without having to dedicate as much time to searching for samples and producing, which was nice. It allowed me the space to push the pen a little harder, you know? Um, Whereas like working on the first record, it was definitely like I can't call it 50-50. It definitely felt more like 75% producing and 25% of the time spent writing. Um, and this was more like, I was like producing occasionally, but like the focus was on the record, so spending a lot more time writing. And I don't know, it's hard. I was like, I almost want to say it's like I've gotten kind of comfortable, like, in with more like leaning heavy on writing than producing. So, um, whether that is a good or bad thing remains to be seen going forward. But Yeah, it gave me the ability to like pack in those things, like those deep references that no one will ever find out about that are on the record. It gave me time to mull over, rewrite, edit. Yeah.
That's it.
Did did you find anything like with the focus on writing? Did you find anything in your writing style or your writing process changed from the first project to this project?
I'd say I I think the writing process became more refined during working on this, just because I have a set of quote unquote easy wins, right, that helped me get started. Um, and this was like taking some of the things I learned from how I wrote the first record and then just uh putting it on 10, right? So like if as like I was saying, like watching movies and like hearing a turn of phrase and like how can I flip that and make it my own? It was like doing that except, on crack, basically. Like I was whereas like if I was just more I felt like I was more in tune to like the things I was looking to say and looking to draw from. And like not having spending so much time making beats like allowed me to be in that creative headspace. So like if I was going to be receptive to something, I was just more in tune with it because I was more focused on the writing. Whereas like a lot of times I'd be engaging with things passively, right? Does that make sense? Like,
Mhm.
I just like I had yeah, I'm kind of just gonna end up saying the same thing again, but I just felt like I was able to be more in touch with like the things I wanted to draw from and finding ways to articulate that on the record.
Yeah, the galaxy brain of it all. You're not just writing the thing, you're also seeing how it fits. And your editing is sharper because you just got more of a three-dimensional look at what you're trying to get out of it. That makes sense. The Yeah, I was thinking about the what you said about COVID with the I used to feel things because you remember after COVID was over, we had a slew of like COVID content in TV and movies. And I don't know about everybody else, but I tapped out of a lot of it. I was like, nah, man, I'm good. I just got to go outside. I'm not going to watch your dystopian disease that kills us all show. No, thank you. Um,
And we just lived it.
right. We just live this. No, thanks. Um, and so I can imagine because there were a lot of rap albums like that that came out, right? After COVID, like that were recorded during COVID that were like, I'm alone in this room and sad. And everybody was like, man, I don't know, man. I just got out of the room. I don't necessarily want to go back into this, you know? Um, so I think I can see how that might have happened to that album when you got on stage and you're like, here's the one about feeling alone.
Yeah. Oh, it was definitely a lot of that. I was like, no, that's like you nailed it to a T. It was like I wrote those songs in isolation and then going to play them out in a community of people. I was like, this record was for me. Like, I didn't really want to share this work in this format, or I don't like it. Just like it didn't feel like it wasn't written for with anything else in mind other than like venting and getting
Mm.
like getting those ideas somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I think there's a way to write material like that and have it translate well live. Um, it's just something that I did not take into consideration during the making of it, which I was much more in tune with during working on this record.
No, you can't turn to the crowd and be like, put your hands in the air if you feel despair. And they're like,
That because that's interesting because I do think there are there are a lot of records that are lost in translation.
"Mm,
How do you make that translation from recording to performing? Like
Uh, I had the luxury of getting to, and I don't recommend a lot of people do this because you might wear out your material fast, but I had the luxury of uh, demoing a lot of these songs at a bunch of shows that I played before the record came out. So I already had, it was like doing it like a stand-up process. Like I'm trying
Wow, yeah.
jokes, right?
Mm.
So and like I'd sprinkle them in with I was also like I changed my live set so I was able to perform um songs from the first album by just like
It's
playing them on
9 o'clock.
different beats. Um so that was helpful as well. I was able to like blend in old material with new by just like moving verses to different beats.
Mm.
Yeah, no, demoing that stuff and figuring it out. Ooh, I mean, that those first couple shows when you figured out that the this wasn't a live crowd record. We talked about this, right? Like we were like a while ago, we're just sitting reviewing shit. Two Chains came out with a new album, and Kay was like, this album's not great." I'm like, "These two songs are gonna kill live. The album's probably just worth these two songs that are gonna kill live." Because like Chains is probably thinking that way, you know. Um, so that not everybody has to think that way all the time. Obviously, not everybody has to do the two chains model, but it's worth it to start doing that and think about it. You know, I remember there was an interview where Woods was talking about how different the Hiding Places songs ring off live than everything else. Uh, this is before Ethiops and all that, and so I think he was like kind of chasing that a little bit. Like that's interesting, you know. I want to have things that really ring off for people.
Mm.
Um, how's the difference been with this album? Have you gotten a chance to perform these songs?
Yeah, I want to make a note that like when I talk about performing live, I'm speaking for like how it felt for me to perform the
Yeah,
songs. I
sure.
can't like okay, yeah, yeah. I have no idea if people are enjoying the songs in the live performance, right? So and I think there's like still like graduating, right? I'm still learning a lot of things about like how to create music that translates well live. This was purely like I want to have fun performing these songs. Um, oh, yeah, I think you were said something, but you were muted.
No, I was telling my son to go to bed.
Oh, okay.
Right
Um,
here.
but yeah, no,
Hey,
I mean,
bud.
I have.
Jeez, bedtime's going to hell. You know.
All good, all good.
Anyway, no, it's real good. But yeah, so yeah, and by the way, if people are listening and they were at these shows back in 2022, 2023, and Miles killed it and he's not aware of it, leave a comment. Let him know. Let him know he did great.
I'm being somewhat coy. I've gotten like plenty of good feedback, but
Mm.
you know, I still want to there's still a lot to learn and I want to still keep pushing and like figuring out ways to make music that's both interesting to listen to and fun to perform live. So still navigating that.
That's awesome. Now the so have you gone and done these songs?
Yeah, I had a release show what is it, March? Just a couple of weeks. I guess no, it's not it's a like a month ago to date actually. It was February 13th.
That's awesome.
Month, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. So how did it achieve live what you hoped it achieve or would lean towards?
Well, yeah, I'd say yeah. Also, like mentioned previously, that like I kind of spoiled it for myself a little bit by playing these songs like sporadically throughout shows the previous year.
Yep.
Um, so I'm probably not gonna do that for the next record and just like leave it to, I say that now. We'll see how much that holds true. But yeah, I played a lot of that material. There was only a couple songs on the record that I hadn't performed live before. Um, but it felt good. Like I already felt good about performing the material because I had already performed the material. Um, and and it, like, again, for me personally, it felt a lot more fun to play those songs than some of the earlier work.
That's awesome. The other thing that's interesting about this, I was thinking about, was all your rap guests are from Chicago, and I was like, this makes sense to me. The energy of this Chicago independent scene is in line with the frustration of this record. Like it makes sense to me. Um, Obviously, Sketch is the bellwether of that, right? Sketch is an event. Whenever he steps in, it's an event. Um, and I think that makes sense. And so but you have the ability to all three of Rama, Def C, Sketch 185. They bring this a human level of badass MC shit, right? They're still killing it, but they're breaking it down on such a human level that it's perfect for what you're doing. Um, how did that come out accidentally, or was that like when did you realize? Oh man, all these guys are Chicago.
It happened pretty organically, and mostly just like Chicago was the first region or group of people to like show love and tap in. Like uh after like in 2022 when the first record came out, it was like I got an immense a lot of love from Chicago cats before anyone else. So I had I met Rama at a show they performed at in Brooklyn. And it kind of just like, I sent beats that one of them ended up on their latest record, Joshua Virtue's Dead, uh,
Yep.
and Def C raps on that one. And then yeah, I can't remember exactly how the I think Def C probably yeah, Def C reached out over Twitter after rapping on that beat and was like, I want to rap on more Miles Cook beats, and then that kind of just went from there.
That's cool.
So yeah, that we built a rapport from that, and I was just like reached out. I was like, hey, I have, and yeah, when I worked on Zugzwang, I was like, I know, I just heard his voice, right? I was like, that's how a lot of the songs came together. It was like working on it, and I was like, hear someone's voice, and it's like kind of a coincidence. They just all happen to be from Chicago, but it was really like, who do I think his voice would sound the best on this, and like would fit the song concept, the most. So I was like, I think Def C really liked this one, Rama, and yeah, the same sketch when I made the beat for the devil part didn't change. I remember working on it. I was like, I gotta get Sketch on this. I
Right.
probably texted him and sent him the beat at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was like, dude, you have to rap on this. So,
And I remember when it came out, and Sketch was really excited for people to hear it, and that's so cool. Sketch is so dialed in and listens to everybody, and is such a cool person. But it's a nurture argument, right? Like Chicago was into you, you were around Chicago cats. So when you were hearing the stuff, being like picturing voices, it was the people that you had heard and were around and were in that positive wavelength. So it makes sense. I would say I guess that's a continuing theme on the show, Kay, of like lean into where you are, you know, wherever you are, like just be there, and embrace it and find what's there.
Absolutely. You don't have to go looking for it necessarily.
You would lose some of the cohesion if you had been like, okay, I got to find somebody like this or somebody like that, and it wouldn't have cohered the way it does. Um, Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're doing things the right way, you'll
Yep.
attract the energy, the people, the artists that you should be working with. I think.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I was able to get all those talented people on this record and like, exactly where they were supposed to be on the record. So there's like some real serendipitous shit going on there.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing when the community, you know, gets these things together, and we get a great album out of it. So that's great stuff. Oof, there's so many, there's so many tough one-liners on this. Wow. Uh, but great imagery. I love the imagery on this album. We should go over some tracks. Talk about get on my notes one on one. Uh, Negus sets a menacing tone, hits hard as a mix of sadness and bragging. Most friendships are only convenient. Oof, it's a hell of a line. The yelling about being tired, but assertive and determined. Uh, yeah, there's a sense of being worn out, but also being ready to go through anything. um, and I think that kind of carries over. Um, how did you feel about that as an opener, Kay?
Oh, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think once the album started to unfold, the when you go back and listen to it a second time, knowing what's coming on after it, it hits a little bit harder as well.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, because I think when you first press play, if you're not up on Miles Cook,
Hmm.
it's a lot to take in. You know, your rap voice is very different, right? It takes a little adjustment, I think, for people that aren't used to, the Fatboy Sharif kind of end of the universe where anything can happen vocally. Um, and I think this is, yeah, all positive stuff. Um, Man, there's another Miles Cook phrase on the Book of Job Part Two. Fancy curmudgeon logic. Fancy curmudgeon logic. That was one of that got me writing the note of like, all right, this guy's language is different. This is awesome because there's with words and phrases because they change so often. Um, they're time stamped. You know what I mean? They're time stamped. So, like, you hear somebody say Riz, you don't think they're 50.
Right.
Right? Like you assume that's a younger person. But you hear somebody say curmudgeon, you're like, oh, that's probably an older person. Like language has this dating, time stamping thing. If you hack into it and you use the wrong lingo for your group, it, it's kind of a superpower.
Yeah, you know what? I can't front. I don't even really remember writing that line, but
Awesome.
curmudgeon's been like in the vocab for a minute though. It's just I'm like it's yeah, I would totally be front end if I was like, yeah, like some real prolific shit. No, I just
Yeah.
like that's a piece of vocabulary that's been in my mind for a while. And it just like I never had somewhere to use it and it was like it conveyed the idea that I wanted to. Um there isn't like some real like cool backstory to that.
No, no, I didn't. I was just remarking that's another one of those examples. But yeah, you can never really ask people in depth about their unique language because to them it's not unique. They're just doing it, you know. But with the Book of Job Part Two, you engage with organized religion in a really interesting way in this album. It's a big theme. Um, and there's a lot there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of hostility there. um were you conscious of doing that?
Oh, absolutely. I knew I kind of like this is the first when I was working on this record, it was the first time I kind of like put the cart before the horse. I knew the name of the album before I wrote a single song, right? And I had originally had like a different vision of how like it was going to be presented, but I had an umbrella idea of like what I wanted to tackle in the record, and then it was like going out and doing that, right? Um, and I'm there was a big part of it was like I want to address like a contentious relationship I have with religion, and then somewhere along the lines, along the process, I was like, I kind of want to make sure I cover that way more in depth than just one song. So. One of the earliest pieces of writing was the song with Sketch, which is like pretty hitting the nail on the head, right? But then I was like, there's a way to talk about other things in the periphery, and not necessarily have to do it tackling it the way I did it on that song. And the more like I was going through the process of working on the record, I was like, there's still more I could say about it. And even when I was done with the record, I was like, oh man, there's so many other things that I forgot to mention, right? But I felt like I covered enough of it, or at least I felt satisfied with the amount of tackling the topic at hand that I did.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's a level. I don't know. I'm just this is what I'm getting from what I've absorbed from the levels. It's almost a feeling of disappointment in organized religion, where there's like this should be so much more than what it is. Um, eh, yeah. So the parasitic nature of it gets in the way of what it could be doing, um, which I think is is an interesting perspective um, that is not everybody's, critique point. So, um, yeah, this
I
is yeah, it was a good point.
I
Go
have a
ahead.
question. As a rapper, are there any writers, whether it be in literature or in music itself, that you've kind of drawn inspiration from?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I like big Orwell fan, big PKD fan. Um, I like sci-fi a lot. So, there's a lot of like what I was reading. I mean, obviously I've read things outside of sci-fi, but and then it's like rap wise, like I think I mentioned earlier, like Ace and L were heavy rotation, but there's like a lot. Like it'd be hard to list because there's a laundry list of rappers that I'm influenced by. I just like there's so many dope ones. I mean, Doom, obviously, Breeze Bruin, big influence. And then like not even, I mean, I'd even call like Cameron an influence, like the humor in his writing. I'm not necessarily the funniest person, right? So I do try to inject some humor in my writing. And one of the earliest influence of that is it's like every other line Cameron says is the funniest shit I've ever heard.
Right,
So
right.
so I think it's important to like pull from all like different sources. So yeah.
Yeah, a touch of Cameron will go a long way. The crazy thing about Philip K. Dick that I think maybe gets lost a little bit if you don't like a lot of people love sci-fi, but not a lot of people read sci-fi. It's a different group of people that just go to the movies. But there was a Philip K. Dick's era of sci-fi was like wildly macho era of sci-fi. Like if you read old Robert Heinlein, that shit is wild. It's very chest thumping, badass, like macho sci-fi, which is just not. I don't know. I think a lot of people who don't read sci-fi regularly would be a little thrown off. Reading, even just reading the Philip K. Dick books that those movies are based on. There's still a lot of wild shit in there. Um, yeah. Any sci-fi specifically that has been influential to you? instructive in writing?
I mean, like first season of Westworld, I just
Ooh.
come on. It's like I think anytime we're going with like questioning how do you know what you know, nature of reality, those kind
Yep.
of things. I'm tapped in. I'm in. I mean, like the later seasons not as great, but I think the first season alone did everything it needed to do, and they could have ended it there, and I would have been happy.
Yep.
I like Silo a lot. I've been watching that. I binge watched the second season. As far as movies go, where what I like the creator. What was it, John David Washington,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I think that's the last one or I mean, obviously Dune was dope, but I like outside of like the big budget shit, the creator was dope. I wish Hollywood would take a little bit more risk on making films like that.
Mhm.
Uh, and I mean, I need Nolan to keep making IP because no one else is like taking those risks. We had
Mm.
not everyone loved Tenet, but I loved it just because it wasn't like everything else that was happening, and I was like willing to overlook some of the deficiencies in the storytelling in that movie. So,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I mean, like I'll give anything sci-fi, I'll give a shot. Even if it like turns out it's not great, I'll still go along for the ride.
Nolan is
Well,
such an illusionist. Like almost, how like Common is one of those dudes where you listen to the album 10 years later and be like, that shit doesn't rhyme. Like I don't know, like he has those Nolan's like that with the plot where like you watch it the sixth time, you're like, no, that doesn't actually make sense. He gets away with a lot of that shit because he's really good. Um, go ahead, Kay. Sorry.
yeah, I was gonna say, were there any movie? Because you mentioned at the beginning you like to watch movies and like keep notes of them for any inspiration. Were there any movie moments that kind of snuck into this project?
Oh man, they're buried now. Like
Oh,
they're in there for sure, but like it would be there. It's like it's so it wouldn't be anything that's so like on the nose that you'd be like, oh, know what? I'm lying. Okay, so Mission Impossible. There's a line at the top of the album that's like kind of a play on something that happens in one of the Mission Impossible movies. So that's the one I can remember. But then I'm sure there's other ones in there, but yeah, I only remember that because it's right at the beginning of the record. And the other ones they're sprinkled throughout, but yeah, I can't remember if it's not Fallout, it's the one right before that. But yeah, I just kind of flipped something that Tom Cruise says in one of the Mission Impossible movies for the beginning of the record.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. The man, Zug Zwang,
yeah.
to me, that's where the we hit a different level in every way, right? I think the beat is fantastic and one of the best beats on the album.
Mhm.
Um, but the the concept of the song is so cool. Um, and the other thing that I really respect about you and your writing is the first lines. I'm a big first line of the first verse person, and the first line of that song is something like uh just gave a fuck you to my upstairs neighbor.
This one's a fuck you to my upstairs
This
neighbor.
one's a fuck you to my upstairs neighbor. Like, holy shit. Like that is an attention gift. That's fantastic. And like Def C is so intuitive that when his verse comes in, it's fuck your greasy ponytail and inability to speak when I greet you on the stairwell. It's exactly locked in with the energy you presented, but also I'm also gonna kill this first line. Like um I just love that.
Yeah,
Uh
that song came from a very, very real place. Literally wanted to murder my upstairs neighbor at one point. And we were at odds with each other it was just like all types of day and night banging. Sounds like he's doing construction in there. And it was like during the process of making the record, right? So it was just like I'd be looking for samples or writing, and then it just turned into I was like, I don't know. It got to it went to the breaking point, and I was like, I have to get this out somehow. And I like remember recording that and like kind of sheepishly because I'm saying the line over and over, and I was like, I wonder if he could hear me saying this. And then eventually I just like had to let it rip because I was like, I gotta get a good vocal take of this. I was like, I don't give a fuck if you can hear me. Like I gotta listen to your shit all the time. So um yeah, that song that came I was drawing from real tangible visceral anger when I was writing that.
Yep. That's yeah, that's awesome. And then there is, and then when you're dealing with something that's that visceral and real to you, um, it shakes the audience because the audience is now like, oh, this isn't a fucking demonstration. This isn't There's no detachment here. This is right here, you know? And I think that song does that. I think it grabs you by the collar and pulls you. Um, did the, how did that affect your listening, Kay? That song? Did that
Oh, I loved it. It was definitely that was where, for me, that's where everything ratcheted up a little bit. I thought your and Def C's chemistry, like in terms of like how you played off on each other, I thought that was really, really well done song, and that was definitely one of the highlights. Like the Book of Job two part two, and this track were my that was like the highlight of the album for me. Those
uh,
two songs together, yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Oh well. I mean
Just
my
fantastic.
Yeah. My favorite is the Untitled with Rama. I think that should be a group. I think you guys should just be a group. Um, yeah. Hands down my favorite song. Beautiful, warped, classic jazz sounds.
Hmm.
That Rama fits perfectly over. That is totally Rama's thing as well. Um, and similar producer tastes, right? Pretty sounds made ugly, and as lyricist, just loud but literary as fuck. Um, yeah, I just think that would be, yeah, that's an easy win.
Yeah, I gotta see what they're up to. I can't make any promises on
I'm just,
that.
I'm just man. I just,
You know
I
how
just thought
schedules
that
are, man.
Yeah.
was my favorite chemistry.
I appreciate the
Yeah,
comment. I can't make any promises
yeah,
about
no, I'm not. Yeah,
uh,
I just want to cast my vote. It was, and it was a good like um picking apart of industry nonsense. Um, and I thought that was really cool. Um, yeah, that whole man, the whole way this record ends is dope. The Pollyanna Principle's dope. Um, 7 to 10, you go from Foul Month, Dismiss the Fear of Being You, to One Romancy, um, and yeah, the Untitled. It's good stuff. So yeah, I just really enjoy that. So, what has the response been on the album? Is it dwarfed everything else? How are you handling that?
yeah, I mean the response has been great. It definitely reached a lot more people than I thought it was. I was like I definitely, I mean, take it. So I don't know how many other people deal with like album releases, but I had, the majority of this record was already done pretty early in 2000, or I guess last year, 2024. Um and I just kind of sat with it for a bit before pitching it because yeah, I got like kind of like in my own head about it. Ended up like re-recording a lot of things. There was also like I had a laptop crash happen during that time as well, so there was like a necessity re-recording that happened. Like the album was done, lost all the work, had to put the record back together, and then still sat with it after that
Hmm.
for a bit. So by the
Were,
time like it came out, I wasn't sure what to think anymore, other than like I knew I enjoyed it when it was done, and I kind of had just stopped listening to it for a while, and then just like let it take its course. So it's been fun. It feels like getting a second life on something that people are just getting to now. But like not just in the sense that like I worked on it, as like I just like I had enough time to separate myself from it from a bit, um, not just in the sense of like, oh, I made it, I've heard the songs already. It was like the album was almost like dead to me, if you will, but like that's not a good way of putting it.
It's almost like one of those movies where where you saved the world, but no one knows it. Like the dimensional recall has happened, and no one knows all the struggles you went through. So you just wake up and it's a normal day, but you're like, "Hey, I made it." You know, like because
Yeah,
you almost lost it. You had to recreate it, put it back together, put it out, and now it's out, and it's perfect for the people who heard it the first time.
yeah.
did you notice? So you said there was like an original version. Did you notice any differences between the re-recorded version and the original version? Was there any like shifts or anything?
Um, those I mean, there's like an ever so slight and it's like lost to time now, right? Because like there's no recovering those files, but I had to redo the beat with Sketch. So like I think the drums were just slightly different on the original version, but I did my best to like I was recreating some of it from memory, and then I know there were like tweaks in there that just were impossible to recreate because like they kind of happened really on the fly.
Hmm.
And like there was a point where I was kind of frustrated about that, and then I was like, no, I'll just have to make it sound like this version of the beat has to be as good as like the memory of what was lost, right? So
Hmm.
and now I don't even remember what those things were anymore. So they don't, you know what I mean? They don't matter. The same with like the vocal takes as well. Like I thought there were like when that laptop crashed, I was like was some of the things I was like most upset about was losing what I thought were better vocal takes. Um and a part of like going back and doing it was like chasing what I thought was the good vocal take, and then eventually getting to the part of like letting go. It's like they're not coming back. It's
Right.
I'm not getting those recordings back. I need to just like I need to be looking forward, like what's gonna be the best vocal take now, not
Hmm.
what I can't recreate. So um there's been enough time between that where it's like I don't even remember what I was like so upset about because I can't hear it anymore. It's gone now. You know what I mean?
On, yeah, yeah.
When it was fresh in my mind, it was a lot of chasing, getting the record back to sounding what I thought was the finished version. So this is like the new finished version, which is like to me like there's no I can't compare it. I just like this is what it is now. I don't remember what I was like upset about anymore. So
Yeah,
Like that.
that's awesome. At some point, you didn't mess it up, and that's great, right? Like, hey, I made this work. I didn't lose any because yeah, if you don't successfully raise the bar on what you do, then you are stuck remembering that old stuff that you lost, and you're doing the RZA lost in the fire thing in your head, lost in the flood. Sorry,
Well,
um, but yeah. No, it's that's awesome, and I hope people continue to connect with this. Um, it's it. I think it's a great statement album. I enjoy how succinct it is. That these songs, and 10 songs, and that's it. Um, yeah, it just really works, and it's really cohesive. Um, so you really feel like you know who is talking by the end of the album. Oh, the question I had was about mixing and mastering because you've had Dove do both of these albums. I used to feel things, and it's not a portrait. So, talk to me about what you've learned from his mixing and mastering.
Um, that like kind of like in line with the previous question's answer was just like Dove has like is a wizard at gluing things together, bringing elements out in songs that I didn't even hear or so um I like I knew when I was exporting the stems that and like listening to what like the sequencing, and it was very easy to be like, this is not what it's gonna sound like after Dove is done with it, like gets done with it. Um and it's nice having someone that like I like most of my notes are like just either turn my vocals up or down. It's never like it's I trust what he's doing
Right.
with the stems so much that it's like I'm not really asking I'm it's not like there's not a lot of like specific tweaks I'm looking for. It's usually just like levels, right?
Yeah.
So, and he made creative decisions, in the mixing and mastering process that I was like, I didn't ask for. They make it work, and I was like, that's great. Thank you for doing that, without having to ask for it. So, yeah, he's dope, and I'm grateful to be able to work with him.
Yeah, I think some people in the earlier stages like save money by not paying somebody to mix and master and just kind of trying it out. You can mix and master yourself, but you have to know that it's an art and be good at that art, you know, or you're kind of, you know, leaving the music, you know, unformed in a way. Um, but yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I consciously made a point to I also think there's like value in having other ears on something that like you're so close to, right? So I mean that's like the good answer. The other part is just like I'm already spending all this time writing and producing, and it's like I don't necessarily have the energy to learn the other trade of mixing and mastering. And then on top of it, I think it's really good to have someone that isn't like hearing what I'm hearing go in and like take some creative control as well. This is all up to me. It might not have come out the way it did, right? So yeah, there's a level of there's a happy medium of not having too many cooks in the kitchen, but I think that's kind of like a necessity, at least in my like how I approach making a record.
Yep. No, that's absolutely. Yeah. Okay, what else you got?
Um, I guess like my final parting question would be like, what did you learn from the creation of this project that you would like to apply to your music moving forward? Because it
Uh,
sounds like you've had some time to sit with it. Like, what have you learned? Like, what is something you learned, or what is the lesson you learned from creating this that you want to use moving forward?
I'd say definitely not be scared to take risk, or if you are afraid, take them and see what happens on the other end of it. A lot of this record was I'd say the leap between the writing on my first record and this record was an attempt to take some wild swings um and creative risk. And I feel like even if not all of what's being said on the record translates, I know I pushed the writing to a place that I didn't know I could achieve before. And that's something I want to continue to strive for. So, and that only comes with like not being scared to see what happens if like you go down the rabbit hole. So, um, as I'm like starting to work on new things, is like keeping that in mind because it was fun getting like looking back at the record and going like, yeah, it was like a lot of work. I was drawing from a lot of places, but I feel like I met the vision I had in my mind for this project by like, just putting it all on the line there. So yeah, it's got to take some wild swings occasionally, and you'll yeah, sometimes you'll make contact. So
Mm.
Yeah. No, there was what I was gonna maybe final thing here would be on one room and see you say y'all having fun yet? The American Dream Beneath the Sunset. Um, and it felt like shades of Hunter Thompson taking America kind of to task,
Mm.
uh, blowing it into a metaphor. And I was just like, man, I don't like. There's just not a lot of people who make me feel that way, you know. Um, so you've got a lot of reference points for what you do, right? You've got a unique set of language. Digging as deeply into whatever you want to do is going to be rewarding uh, because of how unique you are. So chase that dragon for real. I appreciate it. Yeah, it feels like you discovered a like a new world for yourself in this album. You know, like when a player comes back from the summer and the new NBA season comes out, and you're like, they're shooting 18 footers now? What happened? You know, like that's that feels like you did that to yourself.
yeah, I gotta give Sketch a lot of credit for that as well. And I mean, I've told this to him, but I was like, after hearing Sketch rap and seeing him perform, it was like, okay, yeah, the bar is super high. So like whatever bar I had for myself needed to be raised, right? Because like that the sketch is there and then everyone else is trying to catch up. And I was like, I want to push myself to a place where I'm like, okay, and like even like asking Sketch to be on the record came with the level of like, okay, well, you're gonna be on a song with Sketch. How well are you gonna be rapping on that song, right? So like but like not just that song, right? I wanted to carry that energy throughout the whole record. So yeah, big shout out to Sketch for pushing me to uh write better.
I love that. I love that. And that's a gift. Hopefully you'll be able to pass on to somebody else. Um, yeah, that's how the community keeps being good. Um, yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna go to recommendation corner. If you don't have anything else, Kay,
No, no.
talk about it. First thing, outside of music, Kay, I don't know why this happened to me, but I got sucked into XXL G Unit coverage from like 10 years ago on
Fascinating.
YouTube. They had a documentary that was like 26 minutes, and then they had a two-part roundtable. So I logged about 100 something minutes of G Unit time, and it was wild. It was wild because like
Um,
absorbing the kind of social hierarchy between friend business partners where it's millionaires and multimillionaires, you know, and they're having to parse out that the ego goes along with that shit. It's weird, and 50 is totally not uncomfortable with it
well, he's the
because
top dog at the and G Unit.
he's been in the spotlight, like, and the leader of his crew for more time than most of us have been doing anything, right? Like, so he's like, this is all just it's a different way it exists for him, But he was very insightful and all that. But you know, he does what he needs to do and doesn't
Oh
care.
yeah.
So, and they're all just supremely odd, interesting characters. Um, so yeah, very, very interesting to see and hear Young Buck talking crazy about his stuff and Lloyd Banks be like, I just want to be in my room and write alone. It's like really, really interesting cat. So I'll put that out there to people who find that XXL. Um, I asked in the RMPP Discord chat for recommendations for like albums people thought were overlooked and really good in 2025. And I got some
2024 or 20
2025, 2025.
2025. Okay, so then that last couple of months. Okay.
So one of the ones that came up, Adrian Young and Ali Shaheed Muhammad, Ebo Taylor, Jazz is Dead 22. Really fucking cool. Uh, really dope stuff. And the other one was A Paradise in the Hold, Yaz Ahmed. Awesome. Very good stuff. So I was rocking jazz stuff, um, having a good time, dude. Um, yeah. So those are two there. I'm still trying to figure out why people like Sabrina Carpenter, but I don't think I'll ever get there. Uh, oh yeah, we'll go with the third one. Mike Schaub, Schaub Van Gogh. Love Mike Schaub. Great stuff. Yep, that would be my three. Miles, what are you rocking with?
Um, I got West Side Gun 12 in rotation right now.
I need to listen. I need to listen to that. I skip.
I latest Mike record's really dope.
Oh, showbiz.
Um, I've been listening to a lot of Salami Rose Joe Lewis also. I know she has a new record coming out. If it's not already out already, I need to get up on that. But yeah, my it's kind of all over the place right now.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. The Kay, what are you rocking with?
So a couple of things. So I got into the Mariba album.
Oh, you did finally
Yeah,
get
I
the
got
movie.
into that,
That's
loved
awesome.
it. And then
The Earth,
Leon.
did the Earth grew a fire? The Earth something?
Uh, I'll
The
give you the
breeze grew a
exact
fire?
title. It is.
I don't know what happened to me. I can't remember long titles anymore. I'm just old. The breeze grew a fire. I did it.
Yes, the Breeze Grew
Yes.
Fire. Yes. So listen to that, and then Leon Thomas. Uh, he's got a song. I just keep the repeat. So it's Mutt,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's a Freddie Gibbs remix to it.
Oh,
And
well.
I think I've listened to that remix at least no exaggeration at least 50 times in the last 2 days. I don't know, it's not healthy, but so that's what I'm listening to music wise. And then for movies, like I'm getting a little bit into animation, and I went back and I watched the movie Ants with Woody Harrelson from like 1999 2000.
Oh, wow.
Really really enjoyed it. So if you have some time, check out that Ants movie.
Yeah. That's that. I remember there was a period where, and this was before I had kids, and everybody's watching Pixar movies, and they were just stoners watching Pixar movies.
Yeah.
And I remember I had avoided them. I was on an anti-Pixar thing where I'm like, I'm a grown up, I watch grown up movies. And then I finally watched Cars. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is the weirdest fucking kids movie ever. It's like a weird, dusty, independent film. Like in a weird way. It's like he loses himself, has to find himself out in the American fucking West or whatever. Like it's a
Great
very
movie.
slow paced,
Love it.
emotional character movie. Uh, about the talking car, and you're like, this is fucking nuts, bro. And that's why I knew the sequel would be bad because I was like, no, there's no way you can do this again. But yeah, no, it's yeah, we gotta watch more movies. But I've been trying to catch up on the Daredevil show on Disney. Um, get that rocking. But
I
you know,
just watched movie called Vesper. It's pretty like strange sci-fi movie. So yeah,
Esper.
yeah, it's pretty good. Um, yeah, just throwing it out there.
that's
So,
awesome. Do you think sci-fi television shows have a tougher time than sci-fi movies in terms of maintaining a standard and level of? of greatness, or
I'd say like the first one that pops into mind is like how good Snowpiercer is as a movie and how bad the show is, right?
yep,
So
yep,
and then again, like, reiterating like how good the first season of Westworld is, and then the
yeah.
drop off immediately. Um, I'm trying to think of one that like, well, I mean, it's only the second season of Silo, but they're still nailing it to me at least. Um, but yeah, I think it's a little harder. And a lot of, like a lot of shit just gets canceled
What was
nowadays.
that show that started off on the Sci-Fi Network and went to Amazon? I feel like it died there. But it was a sci-fi show, and it
Oh,
really, I think it was based on books and stuff. I don't know.
there's so many. Like I could
There's
like I
so many. There's so many. It was somebody was wearing a silly hat. Um, oh, Thomas Jane was in it. Thomas Jane was in it. That's right. Thomas Jane series. I remember this now. It's Thomas Jane had a strange hat. It was called The Expanse.
Oh, okay. It's funny. I was gonna say that, and then I didn't want to be wrong, so I just didn't
That's
bother.
fair. That's a fair thing. Yeah, it's The Expanse. And I watched it for a while, and then I was like, I don't know, man. It's kind of lost itself. And the same thing kind of happened with that new Paramount Plus Star Trek thing.
Oh, I haven't seen that,
It was
but
it was
yeah.
pretty interesting in the beginning, and then got kind of silly, you know?
I mean, like, I feel like they don't know when or how to end a lot of these shows. Like, Battlestar Galactica starts off strong, and then you're just like, you could
Right.
have ended this like 3 seasons ago, you know? And then when they did finally end it, it wasn't like, anyway, sorry. I
That's a
like,
fair. No, I think that's a real point. You know exactly how Cheers is going to end, right? It's like people crying at the bar, or like how I Met Your Mother. You're going to meet your mother, like they. But a sci-fi show, how does that end? It's yeah. How do you know you're done? It's
and you also have like the politics of the business. Also, it's like, oh, if this is my money making machine, then like let's just stretch this as long as possible, and it has nothing to do with like making quality content, right? But that's a whole other part of the discussion.
that they did that with Chase, the Sopranos guy. He wanted to end it. I think after 4 seasons or something, and they gave him like more money than you could ignore. And he was like, all right, I'll give you two more, you know? Uh, that's, yeah. So I imagine that happen. And when that happens with your sci-fi show, you're pulling those seasons out of nowhere. Um, but yeah, I appreciate this.
Absolutely.
I am very excited to be with you as you find the next levels of what you can do. Um, you know, it this people believe in you. People love what you do. So um, just know that the wind is at your back.
Thanks, man. Can I just give a quick shout out to Rucksack Records
Absolutely.
for putting this record out? Yeah, just peace to Danny from Rucksack. Peace to the expert for making the introduction. Um, and yeah, I'm super grateful for the response and all that.
Rucksack Records has been building in a real way. So that's fantastic. The expert's done some incredible work over there.
Absolutely.
I would love for them to become another strong spot for people to release through. Um, Releasing through a record label, like how was that different than just putting it out yourself?
Um, it was dope. It was like all of the headaches of putting a record out like immediately vanished. They really took care of everything. Um, and I mean like literally everything. So I kind of just like it was a really enjoyable process of like I did all the hard work and they're like, okay, we got it from here. Versus like I mean, like, you still have to promote your own record and shit like that, but like self-releasing is like, do all of the reaching out to blogs and
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. So, and I think also just like they helped me tap into an audience that I wouldn't have been able to reach. Um, record did pretty well in Europe. Just from streaming alone.
Amazing.
People reaching out to me from overseas, and I was like, "That's great." It was like a whole audience that I didn't know how to reach, and they helped with that. So, very grateful for that as well.
I got to get on that Rucksack Records advanced list. No, they do great work, and so one of the things I noticed, I think there's people who came up doing everything themselves, right? They made the beats themselves, they mixed and mastered themselves, they rapped themselves. They had no label, they put it out themselves. They figured out the cover art. So because they spent all that time in the trenches doing everything themselves, when they get a name, they don't actually want the label or want to outsource the different parts of it. And they're missing out on what could help them go even further or save time for them. Um, so glad to have you on record that did help a great deal. Give it a shot. Fiercely independent people. It could be.
I mean, if it works for you, obviously it's got to be the right situation. And I'm fortunate that like everything lined up the way I wanted it. I think it was mutually beneficial on both of our parts. There is value in being able to do everything yourself, but I knew or I mean like the hope was I'd be able to reach a larger audience, which I was able to achieve with their help. So that was a big part of like not wanting to self-release, because I just felt like I worked really hard on this record and I wanted more people to hear it. So yeah, but make sure whoever hears this, if you are on the fence, make sure the situation works for you. Don't just sign anything.
Absolutely. No, yeah. Make sure you're comfortable with the people, but if you bump into a comfortable situation, take advantage of that stuff. Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you everybody for following and enjoying what we do. Yeah, appreciate y'all. Take care of each other.
What will tomorrow